Alright, this week we're moving into Access. This is a very basic introduction to Access. You'll need to download these 3 files. You'll keep these for later, and this is the lecture file we use. This is the actual Access database. So download those 3 from Moodle. So that way you have them. When you open Access, it asks you to enable the content, and so you click there. Then you also have to actually save the database somewhere, so you can save it to the desktop if you want to. Then you enable the content. You save this is an Excel file or CSV file. You can just click on it and save it. Or if you open it, then you can just do File, Save As, and find your desktop, that's fine, and save it. Keep it in the same format, then you can just close that. It looks like it's not going to let us download this text file, so what you have to do is click on the text file. Then click on your Start button and click on Notepad. And you'll have to copy the text out of here, paste it over here. And what did I name it? I named it Product. So File, Save As. Put it on your desktop as. This product. Go ahead and open up your database like this. Get all the files downloaded. Access is a database, which means that it's created several different objects. A database is the background of a lot of software programs. Google's search engine is a large database. This is what powers the back end of Google that you don't see. It's a database system very similar to this. All the data in an Access program are contained in the tables. All the other objects are just different variations of that text or that data. In that case, it's all software like this that works with objects and data is called a relationship database, because all of the objects inside them are related to one table or another. So if you take a look at Access, you have at the top left, we still have the quick access toolbar, save, undo, redo. And then we still have our tabs here. Notice it's condensed. There isn't very many in Access. You still navigate the same way. The Home tab is there with some similar icons that we're used to. And then there's several different tabs. And then these tabs are still broken into groups. Inside the groups you'll find the icons to make changes. This window over here is called your navigation pane. This is where all the objects in your database will be stored. And they're broken into groups. This is a group of tables. The tables look like Excel. You can enter data the same way. They're just a little bit different. Then you have forms, queries, and then reports. We don't get into reports in this chapter, but we will create a query. And they're different objects based on these tables here. Database works. When you start working in Access, you edit and change the data in different views. Depending upon what data you want to change will depend on the view that you're in. So go ahead and double click on the customers table. Yours should show larger than mine. But look, it looks very similar to Excel. You have columns and then you have rows. The difference is these are called fields instead of columns. And then these rows are called records. So instead of it being a row, it's a record. And then these are field names. You still interact with it the same way. You can click around here to edit and change the data. You can click and you can tab across it to change as well. But if you look down here, you can see your different records. So go ahead and click on the left arrow, depending upon where your cursor is, and then move it to the right. Notice how it goes just up and down the rows. So those are your different records within inside the table. You can create a new record. So the record selector's here. You push this, the arrow with the little line beside it, that goes to the beginning. If you just push the one, as you can see, it increments up. This one increments to the right. This will take you all the way to the last record in the table. And this icon will create a new record. There's a search field here where you can search within the table itself for different data. If you look all the way at the bottom here, this is your status or your current location. And notice it says it's in the last name of the customer, which is where our cursor happens to be. This will also show you what view you're in. Down here, the right-hand side, these are the different views. Different objects have different views. When you double-click the table, it opens in data sheet view. And that's where you can edit the data inside. If you right-click on this tab, you can see the different views. There's data sheet view, which we're in, and then there's design view. If you click design view, it looks very different. Field name is here. In a database, you have to have a certain data type. You have to tell Access what type of data is allowed in the field. So these are just text fields, and then you can add a description if you want. And this is your properties down at the bottom. I'm not going to do much with this in this chapter. I just wanted to show you. So just right click on that tab, go back to data sheet view, and then see something that's easy, looks like it's easier to work with. Okay. Any questions on Access, what you're looking at? You can go ahead and close the table. Once you double click the objects here, you'll see the tabs come across. There's two X's. If you click on that one, it closes the whole program. This little small X will close the object that's open. So go ahead and do that. Our project for this chapter works a lot with the forms. The forms is just another way to view the data in the table. Notice we have a customers form just like a customer table, products form like the products table, and transactions. All of these will show the data that's in this table. So go ahead and double click on customers. It just shows the data in the customers table in a way that's a little bit easier to read. Once you double click the form, it opens in, where is it? You'll be in your form view. If you right click on this tab, notice there's three different views for a form. Form view, layout view, design view. Layout view allows you to move these boxes around. Design view allows you to delete and change the fields. In this project, we only work in the form view. So your project's going to tell you to add a new record. If you look, you still have the same exact record selector as we did when we were working with the table. So you can press this new button there and add a table, add a record. So go ahead and press that button and just fill out, put your information in there, fill it out. In Access, there's no need to save this. It's going to automatically save it for you as you're typing the information. If you scroll down, it's hard to see on mine because I'm zoomed in large so you can see. But there's also a subform in this one. So if you're looking at this, there's two different records. Don't get that confused. This one here is for the main form. This is for the subform. So don't get that confused. You won't change any data in any of the subforms on the project, but you'll see it. And then go ahead, you can press new record again and just type in some other information. And that's how you add records to a form, or that's how you add records using a form. You'll just keep pushing that new record button and typing it in. course, when you're working in your assignment, make sure you double check spelling and capitalization and punctuation. Okay, good. Any questions on adding data to, adding a record using a form? Okay, go ahead and close that object. Notice it doesn't ask you to save. But let's double click our customer table. And notice there's the data we just added. The 2 new records. Should be at the very bottom. The next portion of your activity is going to ask you to fit the data in the columns exactly. The way you do that is just like Excel. If you hold between the two, you get the split arrow and just double click. So you just go through and make that adjustment. If you double click, it should show all of it. Go all the way through state, zip, and customer ID. And then it'll say save the table. So just go up here to the little quick save button and click save. And let's take the city and let's change the width of this column to 20 characters. If you right click on that column, it says field width, and you can just type in there 20. And that'll make that column 20 characters wide. Or that. You can save that. All right, within the tables here, you can actually perform a sort. By default, any kind of, the customer ID is where the data is sorted. So notice that it's 1 through 6. So let's sort it. And sort it by state. So if you just click, you can actually click anywhere in any one of these fields and it'll sort it. So if you just click in the first one, and there's a sort and filter section. If you hold the mouse over, you have ascending order, and then you have descending order. So we can just click descending order to switch it around. And then the state, South Carolina shows, and then Florida. Another good thing about sorting that is if you have a large database, if you sort it for ascending, the blanks will come up first and it'll show you the fields that are empty. That's always a handy tool. Your project will have you sort 2 fields. It'll say, so for example here, let's sort by the zip code and then by customer ID. The way you do that is click on the zip code, which is the first one we want to sort, and then hold the shift key and click customer ID. And then you can go, we'll change and make it all descending order. So click descending for those, and then it'll sort it accordingly. So you have to have both of them selected before you press. Another thing you can do with the table is filter. If you look at these arrows beside the fields, these are filter arrows. So let's look here. Let's say I only want to see the cities, let's say Sunport. I want to see all the data. So in this case, I want to see only the customers that live in the city Sunport. So we go over to the city section and we press the filter arrow. You can't see mine, so I'm trying to slide it. There. If you click the filter arrow, it'll automatically show you all the text that's involved in that field. So if I only want to see Sunport, then that's the only one that needs to be checked. So click the check all, and then click Sunport. And then press OK. And then notice only those cities show. The table still has all of the data, but I'm only seeing those cities that exist in Sunport. And click the filter and go ahead and click one of the other ones if you have another. I did two, so I have Conway and Myrtle Beach, so I'll see Conway. And if you needed more than one, you would just check more than one, like that. That's text. You can do the same thing to numbers as well. If you go to the customer ID and press the down arrow, actually go to zip code. Press the down arrow, notice it's the same thing, it works the same exact way. Okay, any questions on the text filters? One more thing. That's fine. Alright, go ahead and close that and ask you to save the changes. We'll save them. Next thing we're going to do is create a query. You don't create any of them in this chapter, but I'm going to show you how. You have to create any of these based on the tables, because that's where the data comes from. So we're going to make a query based on the customer table. So make sure customers is clicked. Make sure it's not open here. Just highlight it over in your navigation pane. And click on Create. And then click Query Design. It's going to ask you what tables would you like in the query. We'll put the customers in there. And you just click customers and click add, and then we'll put the product in there. So click product and click add. Then you can close that window. So then you get two little boxes which represent your tables. If it has a scroll bar, you usually just expand it to get rid of the scroll bar so you can see all the fields that exist in the table. So this is the data for our query, and this is the actual query down here. This is what's going to show. So for this case, I'm going to do first and last name from the customers, and then I'll take a product name from this table. So all you do is just drag them over. So click the last name and drag it right there. Then you can take first name and drag it in here, and then we'll do product name there. If you double click on them, it does the same thing. Okay, so now this creates a query or a different view of the form. So let's go ahead and run this so you can see what it looks like. So if you look all the way at the top, far left, it says run with an exclamation point. Go ahead and click that. See, it just looks like a table. It took data from one table and made it show together as one. So let's go back to design view. So in your activity, though there's going to be, let's change, go back here and click on the data sheet view again. You're going to have a view like this. And you're gonna know it's a query because the query icon has two different tables. Let's go ahead and click the Save button here. Just make it say Customer Products. And notice we create a brand new category here with a query. You know it's a query because it looks like two tables as an icon. So the project will start off like this, and then it will tell you to sort ascending order by last name in the query and then run it. So if you notice, everything is kind of, A is here, M is there, nothing's really set up in any type of order, so we're going to change that. So in order to do that, you need to right click and go to Design View. Then these are our field names here. And then notice the third one says Sort. So go ahead and click right there under last name. Once you click, you see there's a little down arrow. Go ahead and click on that arrow and then choose ascending order. And then run the query. Now notice A's, it's all sorted in that column. So your project will tell you to sort by ascending order, such and such column in the query. So first you have to go to Design View. Design View, make the change, then run it again. Any questions on the query? That's as basic as we start off. The next section is importing data. A lot of times you're not going to manually create data inside the table. You'll usually import or link data from other sources. So that's what those files were we downloaded. So let's go ahead and close this. Say yes to save it. And we're going to create a table from an Excel spreadsheet. So we click on the External Data tab at the top. Then in here you have all of your different file types. You have two sections. One says Import, one says Export. We're going to go to the Import link and click on the Excel. And it launches a wizard to put data inside Access. The first thing it asks you for is your file name. So let's find our file that we downloaded, click Browse. If you put it on the desktop, cancel that. Go to your desktop and open up that employee file. Then click File, Save As. You can still click on your desktop there. And change it from the CSV to 6. All the way at the very top, Excel workbook. You can't see it on that. You see it there, Excel workbook. Click on that, and then click Save. And then close that file, and go back to your database. Okay, now try it. Now click Excel, browse, go to your desktop, and there you should have an employee file. So click there and click open. You have three different steps here. One of them says import into a new table. Then you also have the option to append them to a table that exists already, or you can just link it by leaving the file as it is. This activity in this chapter, all we're going to do is create a new table, so just leave that button there. Click OK. And the wizard starts. First, it reads your file and gives you a preview of what your file looks like. And it's up here is asking you, does the first row contain your column headings or your field names? And yes, that's what we want. So it's already checked by default. Just verify the file looks correct and click next. And then you're going to leave all the data types alone. In this activity, we won't change any of those. But it's going to tell you to let access create the primary key. So we just leave that there. What that does is makes an ID field and just numbers the text, the data in the file. Every table has to have a primary key in order to link data to it. We'll probably talk about that later on in the next couple chapters. Click next, and then it'll tell you to accept the default table name, so we'll leave that as the table name employee. And just click finish. This is the save import steps. If you had multiple files to import, you could save those steps so you won't have to go through the whole wizard again. But we don't need to do that, so we can just click close. Then notice we have a new table there that says employee. If you double click on that, then the data looks just as it did in Excel. It's just converted to an Access format. And we can close that. You can also import text files. So that's the next file that I have. So we click on text file. It's the same process, a little bit different here. We did it says products. So click open. We're still going to make a new table with it. Just click OK. It looks a little bit different here. It's asking you, how is the data set up? Is it tab or is it fixed to line with spaces? In this case, ours is set up with spaces for each field. Click on that. So take the wizard back and use the delimited format. And just do it as space. Press next there, and then it suggests, do we have two columns here? There's several different ways text files come, separated tabs by space, some with semicolons, some with a comma, and then a regular space. This particular one is tabbed. So if we do that, notice it breaks it into two different columns. And then again, we have a checkbox here. Is our first column our field names, and then I'm going to check the box because it is. And so now it looks more like a table. The very first row is set up as the field name, and then the data is below it. And you can click next there. Don't let it set its own data type, so we'll click next, and then allow access to set the primary key. And you can change this to customer product. And finish. Same thing with your import steps, it still exists. So we can close that. Now we have another one that says customer product. If we double click it, we have our data imported in as a new table. So So that's how you import text files and Excel files into a new table into Access. Any questions? Okay. That's your assignments for the week. You can go ahead and get started. You have your 2 projects and stuff, and then your final skills exam for the chapter.